with your new friend Ty.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Tea Party Podcast. It's a podcast where you find new friends and new music. This week, I'm joined by a Maryland native whose journey to Nashville started with a promise to his dad and included a post-concert writing session with the one and only Colt Ford that led him to where he is now. Let's welcome to the show, Sam Gross. Sam, man, how the heck are you?
Good, brother. Thank you so much for having me on, Ty. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Excited to talk about the new music that you've got going on and everything else. But before we get there, this week's episode is brought to you again by Farm Jam 2021. It's a real farm with real people and real music happening Labor Day weekend in Colville, Washington. It's a full weekend of concerts plus a late night party with Spokane's own DJ Maddie. And we've got the hookup for you guys. Head on over to facebook.com/Tea Party Podcast and like the Farm Jam post. Drop your name in the comments for a chance to win a pair of tickets and camping to Farm Jam 2021. You can check them out at farmjamfestival.com.
It's time to tee off with Ty and today's guest, Sam Grow. Here comes the first four.
And here we go. Question number one with today's guest, Sam Grow. Sam, if you couldn't be in the entertainment industry, what job would you have?
So my dad, he worked on power lines. He was a power lineman and worked across the entire Midwest into the East Coast. And I always enjoyed being out on the road with him. He'd take me out on the weekends and we'd ride around in the bucket truck. So that's probably what I would do if I didn't do music.
That makes it kind of easy. You got that family lineage.
Yeah, man. And I just really enjoyed it. Heights have never freaked me out. And it's probably a lot to do with my dad always put me in a bucket truck and, raising that thing up, 90, 100 feet in the air. And I loved it. And, it just always seemed like he had the same kind of adrenaline rush I get on a stage. I think was the same thing he got when he'd go out in storms and fix light poles. So I think I would love to do that.
That makes it simple then, man. How about this?
Yeah. What
is your favorite song of all time? I know it's a tough question.
Dude, that's really hard. So I feel like a lot of my questions relate back to my father, but I earned my first guitar. So my daddy had me late in life. He was 40 when he had me. So he listened to like a lot of old country and a lot of old soul. And in order to earn my first guitar, he told me I had to borrow a guitar from a friend and learn songs with substance before he would ever give me anything. Like when I was a kid, when I was young, I just wanted to learn like Green Day and shit like that. So if I didn't do that, then he'd go, if you're going to learn those kind of songs, I'm not going to get you a guitar. So I learned a song by Sam Cooke called Bring It On Home and sang it to my dad. And that earned me my first guitar. So that's got to be my favorite, I think, by default. Otherwise I wouldn't have a music career.
That's true. I think that's a good answer. Okay. How about this? What character from a TV show or a movie would you bring to life if you could?
Oh man, that's such a good question.
These ones are thinkers.
If I could bring any character to life, what was the bear's name in Jungle Book?
Baloo, right?
Yeah. If I could bring Baloo to life, I would do that. I feel like he'd be a really good homie to have in your house, just kicking it,
I could see that. You just have Baloo chilling on the couch when everybody walks in.
Dude. And he'd sing you a song if you had a bad day, you can't go wrong. And then, if anybody tries to come into your neck of the woods, you have a bear, you have a pet bear, so you're good.
Yeah. There's nobody that's going to mess with you at all, ever.
Truth.
Okay. Last question of the first four here. If you could have an unlimited supply of anything, tacos, whiskey, guitar strings, scotch tape, whatever, as long as it's not money or a money-making machine, what would it be?
Man, I'm going to have to go with one of my main squeezes. I won't say whiskey because it'll make me sound like an alcoholic, but I'll go with coffee. I have to have an unlimited supply of coffee, always.
Okay, that's a good answer. We've had Fruit Loops and Fruity Pebbles, lots of cereal answers to this question.
Those people are smoking a lot of weed.
Hey, you said it, not me. I'm not disagreeing.
It's those artists that live out in Colorado.
There you go. Well, Sam, man, that was the first four. Thanks for playing along with us. But now let's turn the attention to you, man. Give us the high level Cliff Notes version of growing up in Maryland, and then tell us how you got interested in music.
Yeah, so I've kind of lived all over. I tell people so I have tattoos on my hands and wrists of all the states that I've lived in, and the main states I've lived in were Kansas, Maryland, and Tennessee. But I started playing music when I was 16 years old, and I graduated early and just started touring. So I tell people all the time I'm from a van. But my biggest like influence ever for music was when I was living in Kansas. I was from this little town called Winfield, Kansas, and they have this festival called the Walnut Valley Bluegrass Festival. And my dad was buddies with the guy who ran that entire festival. And I was backstage for one of the nights, and a guy named John McCutcheon was playing on stage. And I just remember watching him play for the crowd, and then he popped a guitar string and he gave me that string. And I was just like, this is the coolest thing ever. And just watching him play and the engagement between him and the crowd, and knowing that all these people had traveled so far to come to this little town in Kansas to watch people play music, it made me realize the power that music has and what a special thing it is and a connection. And that's really what made me want to chase it.
Well, and you mentioned it a little bit, getting your first guitar from your dad. He made you learn some songs, but before he bought you your first guitar, he made you promise that you were going to make, some original music, right? How important was that to your journey in music? Just that very specific moment, knowing that you got this guitar to make music for yourself.
Yeah, it was so important to me. Just my dad, like I said, I mean, he grew up, had me later in life, and grew up listening to the greats. And one of the things that, I mean, I think every son, especially if they have a good relationship with their father, like they want to be like them or be cool to them. And I thought that, when my dad would listen to, all the outlaw country and old soul stuff, he related to that kind of music and the realness of those stories. And it made me want to be able to figure that out, to be able to live a life and write songs about it. So it could be cool to not just my dad, but to everybody. And when you write your own music, it's an original story. But the greatest thing about music is what you think is, impactful to just your life is actually happened to a whole bunch of other people too. And makes you feel less alone, which is why I love my job so much.
Man, that is a fantastic way to look at it. And it kind of takes some of the magic off of this next question. But what kind of guitar was it?
Oh, dude, it was an El Dorado. Yeah, like so my dad, again, like blue collar, like you earn everything. So the guitar that I ended up borrowing from my friend, Jesse Sutton, shout out to him. My dad ended up buying it off of him, and it was an old El Dorado. And then my first like real guitar I got from Grunn's Guitar in Nashville. My dad took me there when I was like 14 or 15, just because he wanted, and he snuck me into Roberts. And if you know anything about Broadway, Roberts is like old country bar. And my dad convinced the bouncer that, I wasn't going to drink or anything. And he let me get in there and like watch the band play. And then my dad took me down to Grunn's Guitar when it used to be on Broadway, and went down there, and he didn't even have a lot of money left. I remember him arguing with my mom about the credit card, and he swiped it anyway and got me the guitar. And what a gift, man. Because without that, I mean, I wouldn't have had more motivation to keep playing.
So your first guitar came from Nashville?
Yeah. Like my first,
that's
like
full
official,
circle.
Yeah. Like my first official one. And the crazy thing is I always felt a connection to Nashville. Like I'd come and visit it all the time. And of course, like before I even realized you got paid to write songs, like I would come and play all the time. That's how I got my deals in town. Was I played the National Underground off Second, and a producer named Matt McClure, who produces Lee Brice, came out at random. I'd sent him a message and was like, I know you're not going to come to the show, but just in case you decide to be, crazy and come, I'll be there. And he came and he watched the show and was like, hey, can you stick around for a couple days? And he took me around to some publishing houses, and I got my first publishing deal in Nashville within 2 weeks of me being in town. It was insane. Like that never happens. But like, I just always felt a connection there, and I knew I was always going to live there. So, kind of poetic that's where I got my first guitar, and just always felt that magic in this town.
Well, and so after you went to Nashville the first time, you got your guitar, you ended up back in Maryland, and you kept chugging away. You ended up putting out an album in 2009, which was really before a lot of those streaming platforms were available. So as a young artist, you were kind of were you kind of doing it yourself and just kind of flying by the seat of your pants?
Yeah. So there was like this studio. So where I lived in Maryland was on the border of Maryland and Virginia. My closest city, quote unquote, to where I lived was Fredericksburg, Virginia. So it was like real small town, Southern Maryland, but there was like this little recording studio in this place called Waldorf, Maryland, which is hilarious because there's a band called Good Charlotte, and that's where they're from, is Waldorf, Maryland. So thanks to them, there was like a boom of people trying to create recording studios. So there's this guy, Ron Vento. I went into his studio, and my mom, she was a class coordinator for the college there at the time, and she made him a deal that if he exchanged studio time for me, she would give him a recording class at the college. So he was kind of doing a side hustle with my mom, and my mom was doing a side hustle with him to try to get me into the studio. And I made that record because I didn't have any money. Like, we didn't have a lot of money, and made that full length record and kind of sold it around all the little bars. Cause like there was like no music scene where I was from. So I would go to these little places, and, I'd be like, hey, I'll play next to your Buck Hunter machine for $25 a set if you're down to have me on a Thursday. And I would just go play for like $75 and try to sell my CDs. And I ended up selling quite a few of them. I don't remember, because there's a couple albums that came out, but I mean, I think I sold like it was like 10,000 copies of the Ignition. Yeah, dude. Like, I made a full living off of that one record. I just sold it as much as I could, but that's back when people would buy records,
Yeah, I mean, now it's all Spotify and Apple, and it's a little bit harder. Yeah. And I definitely want to talk to you about what you've been able to do with the new music and what you've got coming up. But circling back to that time in your life when you ended up moving to Nashville. When you met Matt McClure, were you already living in Nashville, or were you just down there for a trip?
Dude, so I literally just came down because it's me and my band. We would just play anywhere we could play. Like, so there was a Sbarro's off Second, and like, we would always, like, in our routes, wherever we were going, like if we were doing Virginia and down, we would always drop in on our way down through Nashville to go play. If we were going from Virginia to Georgia, we'd always stop into Nashville and just try to play to make a couple bucks. So like, we would always kind of hang off Second, and there's like that little Sbarro's there. So when you're, a bunch of guys just scraping by, we would go and hit the Sbarro's and then go and play at National Underground for like one, set for, tips. And we set that up, and I had known Matt McClure like through Instagram and like social media and stuff, Facebook. And I sent him a message and like, hey man, my band's playing. I know you're not going to, I literally started the message off with, I know you're not going to come, but I just want to tell you anyway. And thank God I did, because it like challenged him. And he brought his wife, and they sat down. It was like random set, dude. It was like, I think we played at like noon or something crazy like that, and sat down and watched the band. And then after we got done, he came up to me. He's like, hey, have you ever thought about living here? And I was like, man, I'd love to. And he was like, I got some friends, and you can get paid to write songs in town if you want to try. So he literally took me to Ole Publishing, which is now called Anthem, but at the time it's called Ole. He was like, I want to take you over to my friend John Ozier. I sat down and sang for him and Ben Strain, and John tried to sign me on a napkin right there.
No.
And then Matt was like, no, don't sign this deal, which was funny because I was like fighting with Matt. I was like, man, like, he's going to pay me money. Like, I can just get paid to write songs. So I would take any deal at that time, because I was like, hell yeah, I'm not going to be poor anymore. And he was like, no, just let me set you up on a different retreat, which was the best thing he ever did, because he sent me over to Curb, and Drew Alexander, who used to be the head publisher over there at Curb, took me out on a little writer's retreat. And I ended up writing like 10 of the 14 songs that came out of that retreat. And so Drew offered me a deal. And as God and fate would have it, Drew and John didn't get along very well. So they got into a bidding war, and that ended up being in my benefit.
I bet.
but yeah, but I ended up signing with Olay and then moving to town, and it was just cool, man. Nashville is a town of dreams, and if you fall into the right places, it really can be a magical place.
Well, and I'm a big believer in fate for a multitude of reasons. But for people out there that don't know who Matt McClure is, I mean, he's worked with like Lee Brice, Lone Star, Dylan Scott. I think he has a platinum record with. I mean, this guy is a big hitter in Nashville, and you ending up with him, I mean, really is just kind of one of those fate moments. He shows up at the show and then ends up helping you get a contract out of it. I mean, that's a big deal.
Yeah, dude, just crazy enough in my messages to where he wanted to go like, what's up with this guy? Let me go check him out.
That's the way to be. Just crazy enough.
Yeah.
That's a good life motto.
Yeah.
But then, so from there, you ended up, doing your thing for a while in Nashville. And then comes this night that you open up for Colt Ford, you end up riding on his bus. And then somehow he convinced you to sign with Average Joe's. Take us through that night.
Again, it doesn't happen this way. Like I tell people all the time, like it's straight God's favor. The only reason why I was with. So a little bit of a backstory. One of my best friends is a guy named Taylor Phillips. And I met him when I was on tour with Kelly Pickler. And Taylor was selling Kelly Pickler's merch at the time. Now Taylor Phillips has written Hurricane for Luke Combs, Good As You and Homesick for Kane Brown. He has the new Luke Bryan single getting ready to come out called Up. So like he's a very established songwriter now, but when we met, he wasn't. He just wanted to be. And we became really, really good friends and wrote all the time. Well, Colt invited me to come out on that tour. And it just so happens that night in Virginia, which is Fredericksburg, which again is just crazy for me because that's like the town when I would want to go to the mall. That's where I would go, is Fredericksburg, Virginia. So I ended up getting that date. And it just so happens that Taylor is on the bus riding with Colt Ford that day. And Taylor wakes up, looks at the day sheet that the tour manager put on the wall and saw that I was the opener and was like, hey, holy shit, Colt, like Sam's my friend. You got to meet him. Like have him come up here and write with us today. And we did. And Colt heard me sing and was like, man, Taylor told me some of the stories about, the major record labels and stuff that you said no to. And, I'm surprised that you haven't just gone and gotten the major deal. And I guess it sparked enough curiosity to where Colt wanted to come in and watch me and the band play. And he came in and watched. And after we finished playing, Colt met me at the side stage and was like, hey, after I'm done playing, come back on the bus. I want to talk to you about some stuff. Got done playing, get up on the bus, and Colt said, I know you've had a bad experience with some of the major labels and stuff in town, and, you might feel jaded. I get it. I understand. But my only goal and intention is to have people hear more of your music. I just want more people to hear you. You tell me what your terms are, have your lawyer write it up and put it on paper, and we'll do it. I'll do the deal, whatever you want. And he stood true to it, man. Like, called the lawyer. Like, first I didn't go in because I thought he was just lying to me. So the VP Forrest called and was like, hey, you were supposed to come in and play for us. Why didn't you come? And I was like, I didn't realize you guys were being for real. So went in the next day, played, and the staff voted, and they wanted to, go along with Colt and sign. And I brought in my terms, and they agreed. And I'm just a happy client of Average Joe's entertainment now, and blessed to be a part of it.
Well, and you've been pretty open about the fact that family is super important to you. I mean, you even have a tattoo on your arm that says, what is it, life, love, and music?
Yeah.
And you've also been pretty open about the fact that you consider your band family. How important was it for you that Average Joe's was willing to not break up your band and not stick you with, a house band or a label band and let you keep doing what you were doing with the guys you were doing it with?
Extremely important, because I mean, when I came into town, like I said, I was blessed enough to get Matt to set up those meetings for me. Well, when you're a kid that comes into town and signs a publishing deal with the newest, at the time, Olay was like the richest, newest, hottest publishing company in town. Like they were heavy hitters, heavy players. So when I came into town and signed that deal 2 weeks in, like it's not like I'd lived here for 10 years or anything, just got lucky and blessed. All the major labels started sniffing around. So I did a showcase for all the major labels and got 4 major label deal offers, but all of them wanted me to fire, most importantly, 2 of the guys that are extremely important to my life and career. Like, I was a 16-year-old kid, and my bass player, Gene Quaid, found me at the time and brought me into the studio and wrote songs with me. And then he called his buddy, Mike Stacy, to come and play guitar. And those guys were, I mean, I was a 17-year-old kid out on the road. Those guys were like my dads out there, and they raised me. And the major label's mindset was they were too old, that they couldn't be in my band, and I needed to replace them to have a better image on stage. And so I refused all my record labels deal offers that I got, because to me, having them with me was bigger. I wouldn't be where I was. I wouldn't be in that town. I wouldn't be, playing where I was playing if not for Mike and Gene. And I mean, even Gene himself with that whole Matt McClure thing, like, he followed through with all that, found Matt McClure, and basically introduced me to, Matt to enough to where I felt comfortable enough to send him a message and go, hey, come and see me play. So without those guys, I wouldn't be here. So it was important, and Colt didn't want to change anything. And lucky for me, Colt's an artist. He's had 2 members in his band be with him since the very beginning. And he knows that band members are like blood. So they, they're in the ditches with you. So he didn't want to change anything. And that was my big decision to stay with Average Joe's, that and the fact that Colt believes in ownership and not, screwing over an artist. So it worked great. I really got blessed to fall into the cards that I did.
Well, and I think loyalty is something that I don't want to necessarily say like isn't in fashion in the music industry, but it takes a special type of person to say, hey, I'm not willing to give up this band so that I can go make it big. Like we are what we are. And a lot of respect to you for that.
Thanks, brother. That means a lot. We say all the time, me and my manager, Brad, like, some people do music to be famous, and some people do music because that's all they know how to do. And I think that's the difference, is if there are people who are willing to leave the guys or girls that help build their story, it's probably because they were chasing glitter. Because I strongly believe that 100% of the people that do music because they would do it broke, rich, whatever, they appreciate the journey and appreciate the people that are willing to be on that journey with them.
100%. And I think that's a perfect time to kind of turn the attention now to your songwriting. But before we get there, for anybody that hasn't somehow stumbled across you on some streaming service yet, how would you describe your sound to them if they've never heard you?
Oh man, I don't know.
It's a tough question. I know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a kid that grew up, all over in the, Southeast and, Midwestern, area. So I've listened to everything from bluegrass, red dirt, Southern rock and soul. So it's all in there, but I think storytelling is my favorite. Every song that I cut, I just feel like it's got to be a good story and something that I relate to. So if you just like a good blend of everything and a good story, then I'm your guy.
Well, and we've got a couple of songs here for everybody to listen to, so you don't have to describe it too well for them. I mean, they'll definitely be able to tell here in a second. Yeah. But the first one we have, you put out in April of last year. It's got something like 19 million streams on Spotify. You actually wrote this song with a friend of this show, Kenton Bryant. And I've been a huge fan of this song since it came out. I mean, I'm probably a couple thousand of those 19 million streams. But give us a story about how this song came about.
Well, I certainly appreciate you for streaming it a couple thousand times. That means a lot to me. And I have to tell you, I love talking about this song because I can brag on the fact that I actually did not write it. Oh. So Kenton, Joey, and Taylor, my best friend that I mentioned earlier, Taylor Phillips, they wrote this song. And Taylor, the minute that he wrote it, after he got out of his right, and this is when Taylor has had Hurricane and all this different stuff, he's on Warner Chap. He called me after they wrote that song. He goes, bro, I wrote your song. Like, this is your song. I know it's your song. And I was like, send it to me. He sent it. And this is when I was cutting the Love and Whiskey record, my first debut record off of Average Joe's. And so I was getting ready to go in and cut that song and put it on Love and Whiskey. And then Warner Chap found out that Taylor pitched it to me. And they were like, hold on now. This song's a smash. So then they pitched it around town real quick, and 2 other more established artists put it on hold. And as fate would have it, the 2 artists lost their major deals, so they lost the holds. So then when I came back to cut my next record, Taylor again was jumping up and down like, you have to cut this song. This is your song. I know it's your song. And so we cut it, and lucky for me, Joey and Kenton were nice enough to let me put it out. And they took a chance on me because, you know, in the eyes of everybody in Nashville, I was very much a green, you know, young, new artist. So not as established as some of the other ones. And they rolled the dice, and thank Jesus they did, because it changed my life.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say 19 million streams on Spotify later. That chance for that paid off, man.
So that song, and I'm big in trying to speak it into existence, so it's going to happen. But that song is going to be my first gold record, and it means a lot to me because, you know, Taylor's on it, and we came from nothing. You know, we were both extremely poor when we met each other, and, you know, Taylor was, you know, we were both like robbing Peter to pay Paul to just try to make it. And so it's going to be real sweet when I can give Taylor that plaque. You know, it's going to be a big deal.
And funny enough, Taylor Phillips has never come up on this podcast before until the last episode. We spoke with Carly Rogers, and she talked about him getting her hooked up with Ryan Upchurch. So he's become popular on this podcast as of late. Dude,
you should holler at him. I'll give you his phone number. He is one of the coolest stories and one of the most like motivational stories for your artists and writers and stuff that listen to you. Like, he's such a great story. And I mean, the dude was extreme, like left his hometown, Sanford, North Carolina, was selling merch for God and everybody, sleeping in, you know, vans and school buses or whatever, and was so poor he'd go to Losers to try to network with artists, but he would put a lime in his water because he couldn't afford a drink. But the lime in the water made it look like he was drinking vodka or something, just so he could blend in, but he was too poor to buy a drink. And now he's multi-platinum, you know, songwriter, and still the exact same person that he was the first day I met him. If I called him right now, because my car was in a ditch, he would find a way to come from North Carolina and get to me to help me, and vice versa. So you definitely should talk to him one time, because his story is incredible.
We'll definitely have to set that up. But right now, let's give everybody a taste of his songwriting chops with Song About You by Sam Grow.
Songs about a red dirt, 40-hour hard work, dive bars, 2-for-1s, and meeting somebody. Songs about rich and broke, raise them high, and friends and low, small towns where everybody knows everybody. But tonight, yeah, tonight, I wanna hear a song about blue eyes making love all night. One of them ones that gonna drive me crazy. One about a black dress, red lips, hiding miss, slow kiss, flying, landing on me, baby. Little song we can turn up to. I wanna hear a song about you. Song about you. I've heard songs about summer days, tan lines and tailgates, wrong ways, Mickey stays and boys round here. Songs about guitars, open roads and fast cars, shooting straight whiskey and drinking ice cold beer. But tonight, yeah, tonight, I wanna hear a song about blue eyes making love all night. One of them ones that gonna drive me crazy. One about a black dress, red lips, hiding miss, slow kiss, flying, landing on me, baby. Little song we can turn up to. I wanna hear a song about blue eyes making love all night. One of them ones gonna drive me crazy. One about a black dress, red lips, hiding this slow kiss, right in landing on me, baby. Little something we can turn up to. I wanna hear a song about you. Song about you. I wanna hear a song about you. Yeah, a song about you.
And that one was Song About You by Sam Grow. And Sam, I've mentioned it before, but that song tremendously successful on the streaming services. You put that song out kind of right at the onset of the pandemic last year, actually. Was that something that had kind of been in the hopper for a while, or did you throw it out at that time on purpose?
So we had it recorded, and props to my label. They wanted to put a song out when, you know, the world started going crazy, and we were kind of like uneasy about it, you know? And fortunately for me, they put it out, and I just think it was one of those things, one of those perfect storms where people were at home and they wanted to listen to music more. And it really just took things to a whole nother level for me. So,
well, and we talked about it a little bit before I hit the record button, that I was in Vegas last year, missed your show because I wasn't paying attention to the schedule. Next month, you're playing a show in Vegas. I missed that one, or I'm going to miss that one because I'm not going to get to town on time. But the first concert that I had tickets to at the beginning of this pandemic that got canceled was actually your show in Spokane. So at some point I'm going to have to find a way to see you live, because I keep missing you just by inches. But how much has this pandemic kind of changed the way that you've been operating over the last year?
So I tell people all the time, this pandemic's been it's been a very big hardship for a lot of people. So I don't ever want to discount that, but I tell people, like, you know, I'm not saying that God made this pandemic happen for just me, but he definitely had me in mind when it happened. I've had one of the craziest past years in my career. 2020 was an insane year for so many reasons. I mean, Song About You popped off, and then I had done the whole, you know, quarantine thing and stayed in my house. And of course, my label didn't want me to go anywhere. They wanted me to stay home and just, you know, plan for whenever this stuff reopens. But you're talking about over half of my life, all I've ever done is play shows. And, you know, I play 200 to 250 dates a year. That's my normal for me. So 45 days at my house, I was going insane. And we fortunately had grown to the place where we were on a tour bus, and, you know, we were doing the, you know, second of three or first of three slots and doing those tours. And it was a lot of fun. But, you know, when the pandemic hit, tour buses shut down, drivers and dot regulation, they can't drive you anywhere. But I really wanted to play. So I got on the internet, looked up some of the strictest COVID states, and saw that even in the strictest ones, you could have 10 people over at your house. So I called my manager, Brad, and I was like, hey, I want to go and play at people's houses in their backyards. And he was like, no one's going to book you. And I was like, well, can we try it? And he was like, I mean, how are you going to get there? And I said, well, dude, I got my truck, you know, sitting in the driveway. I'll just drive my truck everywhere. I'll bring my guitar player and we'll travel the country, and, you know, let's go play people's backyards. It'll be fun. Let me just do Fridays and Saturdays for a couple months. Let's see what happens. He was like, Sam, if you can make any of that happen, I will be more than happy to organize it for you. But I don't think anybody's going to do that. So I got on Facebook and was like, yo, anybody want me to come and play their house? And in 4 hours, I had 33 shows booked in 17 states. I was playing Thursday through Sunday for 2 months. And yeah, and I loved it. Literally loved every second of it. And then we decided that I was going to take August off anyway and chill out. And then Brad called in August and he was like, hey man, there's so many people calling that are disappointed that they didn't get to do it back. I called the whole tour Backyards and Bonfires. And he was like, they're bummed that they didn't get to do it. So will you do another run? And I was like, sure. And next thing you know, we booked another 3 months of Thursday through Sunday shows. And I traveled from all the way to the tippy top of New York to all the way out to the West Coast, up to the tippy top of Washington State. What was that city that we played in? We played in Bellingham, Washington.
Okay. Right up along the border almost.
Yeah, dude. So we literally traveled the entire country. I put 100,000 miles on my truck. I, documented all of it. And I went catfishing in North Carolina. I rode side by sides in Pennsylvania. I went and saw the Hoover Dam and the Grand Canyon and Mount Rushmore and Sturgis. Like, I saw the entire country and also got to play shows. So it was crazy. It was fun. So much fun.
Man, they should have got you hooked up with like True TV, set up like a full on reality show for that. Cause that sounds like a blast.
It would have been fun. They were probably just terrified that like one is some, country singing dude traveling the country in a pandemic. How many people are going to hate on this show?
That's probably true.
So that's probably why they didn't do it. So luckily I had it limited to the people who have, followed me and supported me for years, and they loved it. And we did it all safe, all socially distanced. And, it was just a great time, man. It was so much fun.
It looked like a good time from the outside. You did a good job of showing what was going on.
Oh, dude, we had some crazy stories, dude. Like, I literally stole a golf cart in a trailer park and drove to one of their little house trailer park bars and sang karaoke and danced with a lady who'd owned the place since she was like a 80-something-year-old lady, and she'd owned the place like since she was in her 50s. And we danced around her bar and sang Drift Away. And, I definitely downed a lot of Jack Daniels that entire tour. We became Spire Elite members at Holiday Inn. So we had our own parking space. That was pretty amazing.
Man, I'm telling you, pandemic or not, Travel Channel missed out on an opportunity with that one.
Right? Come on, at least Holiday Inn. Hook the boy up with a sponsorship.
Well, man, getting back to your songwriting, give us kind of a peek behind the curtains at what your process looks like. Are you one of those guys that starts with a hook or a melody? Is your voice memos app full? You got like a waterproof chalkboard in the shower?
Yeah, have like a shower beer and write it on the wall.
Exactly.
Man, there is no rhyme or reason to my writing. Sometimes it starts from a title, sometimes it starts from a track. But the one thing that is always true is it's a life that I lived and an experience that I lived. Otherwise, I just don't feel like I can write it or speak on it. So, it always stems from something that I've experienced and lived, and how it turns into a song there's different ways of it happening.
That makes a ton of sense. And when you sit down to write, do you have separate times that you're writing songs, as part of your publishing deal for other people versus when you're writing for yourself? Or is it just kind of when you're writing and a song comes about that you want to record, you just grab that one?
Yeah. So like when I write most of the time, if I'm writing for another artist, that artist is in the room with me. So I try to do with them on what I would do with me. Like it's crazy. Nashville got to a place where a lot of hit songwriters would basically just go in and write these songs and try to let it be cookie cutter to an artist and have it be like multi-cut, and from a business standpoint, I get it. Like, I understand why they want to write that way, but how I try to write with any artist in the room is I want it to be something that's real to them. And so it all depends on the day. If I'm writing for me and I know it's for me and I'm in a room with two of my friends, they most of the time 100% know that the song is going to be written for me. And for my records especially, I kind of stay within the same walls of my buddies and co-writers and people that I think get me best. But other situations where if I have an artist in the room, I'm writing for them and what's real to them as well.
For sure. And we've got another song here for everybody. That's your newest single. It just came out in early February, so it's still brand new. It's called This Town. Where did the inspiration for that song come from? And what did the writing process for that one look like?
Ooh, man. So that came from a legit, and if you saw the video, that was something else I'm trying to do this year. Is I've realized more and more throughout my career that music helps humanize people and feelings and artists, and make those things tangible and real and understand and tell a story. So my video for This Town is, it's true. It's a true story. When Casey Timmer sat down in the room and said, you know, I got this title called This Town, and the hook is, you know, this town likes to talk. I didn't have to try to make up a muse in my mind or anything. I'd lived that. I'd come from a small town, dated a girl in that same small town. We broke up, and, you know, when we broke up, a lot of opinions developed on both sides. And so it came from a real life experience, a real life relationship. And I went through it. It was rough, but I came out on the other side. And I think that's my main message is, I know there's a lot of guys out there like me and girls that, you know, date somebody within their town and they feel like those walls close in on them in that small town. And, you know, my main message is, yes, it sucks and it hurts, but you get through it.
Well, here, let's give everybody a chance to take a listen to it and hear that story. This one's brand new music by Sam Grow. It's called This Town.
Mama saw your mama down in Mapco. Said you moved to Tupelo a couple months ago. She said you loved it and you won't come back. If I'm being honest, girl, I hate to hear that. Somebody told somebody that you got a new man. I'd love to tune it out, but I can't. Cause this town likes to run its mouth about how you all in love and doing better now. This town, it's hard to drive around when your memories on every street I'm driving down. As long as I'm inside these county lines, I hear your name brought up 1,000 times. Girl, it's hard to move on when this town loves its home. Yeah, I remember when you said that you'd never leave. You're sitting next to me in the Chevy seat. I guess the joke is on me now. Yeah, that's the rumor going around. Cause this town likes to run its mouth about how you all in love and doing better now. This town is hard to drive around when your memories on every street I'm driving down. As long as I'm inside these county lines, I hear your name brought up 1,000 times. Girl, it's hard to move on when this town loves its home. Even though you've been gone for a minute, this town still got you in it. This town likes to run its mouth about how you all in love and doing better now. This town, it's hard to drive around when your memories on every street I'm driving down. As long as I'm inside these county lines, I hear your name brought up 1,000 times. Girl, it's hard to move on when this town loves its own. Yeah, girl, it's hard to move on when this town loves its own. Oh, damn this town.
And that one was This Town. It's brand new music from today's guest, Sam Grow. And Sam, without getting yourself in too much trouble with your manager or with your label, can you tell us what else you have in store for 2021? New music, new album, maybe?
Dude, best thing about my manager and the best thing about my label is I can do whatever I want to do. And it is magical. My manager is one of my really good friends. He was in radio for 27 years, and I got him to quit doing that and come and manage me. So he lets me do whatever I want, and my label is the same way. So I can tell you whatever you want to know. But we are on a fast-paced release thing this year. I want to try to put out as much music as I can. I think people like to listen and take in music a song at a time. They're not really into a full album. Like, you know, as much as even my favorite artists, when they drop a full album, I get anxiety because I'm like, oh my God, I got to try to listen to this whole thing right now. So I want to do singles, and I'm dropping one every single 8 weeks. So there's another song coming out. What is the day? April 16th is when we got another one coming, and I'm going to keep it rolling. Just every 8 weeks, dropping something new with new videos, new visuals, new stories.
Well, where can people keep up with you on social media to make sure that they know when those songs are coming out? What are your handles?
Sam Grow Music, and they all have the blue check mark. If they don't have the blue check mark, it is not me. So don't follow them. Don't follow Sam Grow Gifts, or, Sam Grow with two W's, or Sam Grow with 100 underscores. That's not me. If it doesn't have a blue check mark, it's not me. So Sam Grow Music, and I'll always be up to date. But my favorite is if you listen to your music on Apple or Spotify specifically, hit that follow button. And if you follow the artist on Spotify, they will send you a notification, let you know when I drop new music.
Well, that makes it super simple then, man. Thank you so much for jumping on here. I appreciate it so much. So excited to eventually get a chance to see you live. I'm hoping at some point this year we'll definitely make that happen. But before we let you go, we end every show the same way. It's called the Final Four, kind of the same way we set up the first four, just 4 questions that kind of make you think a little bit. Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, here we go.
It's time for the Final Four.
Question number 1. What's your favorite venue that you've ever played in?
So you've mentioned it a few times. I'm from Maryland, but in Baltimore, there's this place called Ram's Head Live. And it was the first venue that I was able to sneak into at a very young age and watch Greg Allman. And then some of my favorite shows ever that I've gotten to see were there. And it's my favorite venue, Ram's Head Live.
There you go. Nice and simple. I like it. Okay. How about this one? Who are the 3 most recently played artists on your Spotify?
Oh, dude, I can do this. I just need to find my phone.
This one's always fun. You can cheat with this one.
I love it. No, I can give you a real answer.
Yeah.
So I have this buddy. His name's Rashad. Have you heard of Rashad yet?
Is that maybe not?
He's got this song called Raised Up. He's kind of like really blowing up on TikTok right now. And he's incredible, dude. Like, such a great voice. And you should check him out after we get off. But his name's Rashad. He's got the song called Raised Up.
Is he the one that spells it with the
upside down? Yeah, with the V's. That's him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I have actually.
Genius marketing, by the way, because that's what everybody says. Then my buddy Johnny Gates, who was a LA resident for a while, but he also lived in Nashville for a while with this band called the Runaway Saints. And they were on Warner for a while, but now Johnny is solo, and he's got one of my favorite voices in town. He's also one of the nicest guy. And then last, one of my all-time favorites, Logan Mize, fellow Kansan, and his new record is incredible. So I've been wearing it out.
His new record is absolutely phenomenal.
Dude, Practice Swing. Have you heard that song?
Yes.
Oh my Lord.
He was actually the last show I saw before the pandemic. He played the same venue that you were going to play here in Spokane. But he snuck his in before everything got canceled.
And it was probably an incredible show.
It was pretty good.
Yeah, dude. Logan's the man.
Here we go. Question number 3. What's your favorite on-stage memory? So
my dad, and I feel like this has been a very big homage to my father, but
that's okay.
Everything kind of is. And I lost him in September of 2018. So it was one of the biggest heartbreaking things of my life. But there's this venue in my hometown, small hometown, called Hotel Charles. But like, hotel is like the Grand Ole Opry to my hometown area. If you can play there, like, you're the man. And my dad, when he first got me, he convinced the bartender there to have me come in and play on Wednesday nights in the small bar. And if you can sell enough tickets and get enough people to come and see you in the small bar, you earn your way to the back venue room, which holds 700 people. And I earned my way back there, sold it out, line around the block. And my dad came out there and saw me and got to stand on stage and look out at the crowd. And my dad, blue collar as hell, he doesn't get watery eyes, but literally, shed a tear and watched me sell that place out, which was a cool moment for me and him.
That definitely sounds like it. I mean, that's got to be one of those moments that neither one of you guys are ever gonna forget.
Nah, man, never.
Okay, here we go. Last question, and this is either the easiest question I'm going to ask you the whole time or the hardest one. Okay.
Yep.
If you could pick one thing for people to take away from this podcast with you and from your music in general, what is it?
So this is a two-part for me, because if you're an artist or a songwriter, I hope that you take away from me and what I'm doing that the only person that has to bet on you ever is you. Your talent is enough. No one else has to co-sign on your talent. You're enough. And thank the Lord, the technology is at a place now where ownership is extremely important, and you can own everything that you do, and you can make a living at music as long as you work hard at it. And if you're a listener, I hope that you now realize that everything that I sing is a personal story to me. And I hope that it also correlates with your life and you find a connection to help you get through that sad, happy, whatever time. And you know that it comes from a real place.
There you go, guys. Sam, thank you so much for jumping on here. I appreciate it so much, man. We're definitely going to have to do this again down the road.
Bro, anytime you want. And I appreciate you very, very much for allowing me to be on your platform and helping me spread the word. It really does make a difference. And I appreciate you very much.
Absolutely, man. And that, guys, was another episode of the Tea Party Podcast. It's a country music podcast where you find new friends and new music like Sam Grow and his brand new song, This Town.
Go tee off on the like button at facebook.com/Tea Party Podcast. This has been a Tea Party Communications production. Theme music created by Jesse Quandt. Announcer voiceovers by Jay Gwynn. And as always, hosted by Ty Pisani.